Hi everyone, it's Christine here, and thank you so much for watching this video. I am ever so sorry that we didn't manage to go live this evening. I was so excited about being live. I had so many people who wanted to watch, but you'll just have to watch it a little bit later this evening, and hopefully by the time you're watching this, it might be a bit later this evening. So I want to welcome you to the lovely Zoe Lloyd Potter, and she's going to talk to us this evening about hormones, especially related to the perimenopause and to the menopause. And I'm at this age where I am looking at, well, I mean, I haven't had the sort of symptoms yet, but I've got a lot of friends who are going through a lot of difficult things at the moment. So I'm thinking, I'm so glad that you are here this evening, because um, I'm hoping that I might be a little bit prepared for everything that's to come, because it's one of these things that not so many, I mean, it's talked about a little bit more these days, isn't it? But
It really is. It really is. In fact, apparently this month is World Menopause Month.
well, there you go. What fitting.
How apropos of our discussion. And
Yeah.
also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And of course, hormones kind of play into both of those factors. So,
So
yeah.
Zoe, just for very quickly, if you can introduce yourself to people, that would be great. Just to, tell them a little bit about, why and how you got into hormones and what made you particularly interested in them. That would be great, because
Well, I guess I spent most of my life as a legal analyst, not as a hormone nutritionist. But I guess necessity is the mother of invention, and I was that girl at 22 with no periods for 2 years, and going to the doctor and going, well, I really don't know what's wrong with you. And 2 or 3 years later after that, I had a sort of diagnosis of what is a common condition now, polycystic ovarian syndrome. But still, the doctor said to me, if you press Google, you'll probably know more about the hormone condition than I do.
wow.
Being very honest, because they didn't know very much back then. And the great thing now is we have so much more information about our hormones, how we test them effectively, how genetics play into it. So we can test our genetics, and we can test on our nutritional status. So many things now that we've got to hand that will give a proper diagnosis and help actually remedy the condition with diet, lifestyle, and sometimes supplemental hormones where necessary. So that's the great thing, I think, now is we've moved on a lot in our knowledge. So but menopause, I mean, hormones at any age, we're going to talk a little bit more of an emphasis today on perimenopause and menopause, but really, hormones can go out of whack, as I call it, at any age. It can be puberty, it can be postpartum, it can be, because you have more conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, more PMS, PMDD, which is a much more sort of serious side of PMS, as well as perimenopause and menopause. And really, all of the sort of factors that we're going to talk about tonight play into all of those conditions. So it's kind of relevant to anything. Imbalance of hormones can happen at any time.
And as we know, hormones are so powerful, aren't they? I mean, I know exactly, like I get to a point in the month when I know that I need to just stay at home, run myself a nice bath, and I might be a bit down and I might feel a bit tearful. And I know that that's just my hormones.
Yeah,
And then 2 days
exactly.
later, I'm fine. And so,
Exactly. I think even the most hormonally relatively balanced person has a little bit more challenge if they're still cycling as a woman in that sort of luteal phase. So in that last 14 days heading up to your period, that is a more challenging time for most people. Like you say, you have to have a little bit more self-care. You have to pay attention to your sleep because you get more fatigued. You have more cravings. You need more carbohydrates. that's a kind of normal sort of, you know, sign of just, you know, that fluctuation of estrogen and progesterone in that second half of the cycle. So,
And
yeah.
what do you think, Zoe? Because one thing about me personally is that I have only ever taken the pill, and I don't recommend this to anyone because obviously, you know, I can't, but I've only ever taken the pill for 1 year in my entire life.
Me too.
And so, yeah, so I know my cycle really well, and I know,
Yes.
you know, I know when the hormones are at play. But
Yes.
what about sort of women that are on the contraceptive pill or have the Mirena coil? You know, I mean, how is that going to affect someone like that with all those kinds of
I think the
things
problem
going
is,
on
I
as
mean, there's
well?
obviously two reasons people take the contraceptive pill. The one is obviously for contraceptive purposes. Sometimes, you know, a girl at puberty who's having really heavy menstrual periods and they're moody and depressed and, you know, you name it, and the doctor whacks them on the pill as a sort of mitigation of that. Instead of kind of treating the hormone imbalance, it's like, let's whack you on a synthetic hormone. And what we know about that is, although ostensibly it may sort of flatten out a little bit your mood or, you know, severe symptoms, it doesn't treat the underlying hormone imbalance. And that's the danger, really, because that imbalance is still going on. You're just kind of not aware of it. It's a bit like taking an aspirin when you've got a headache. The pain is still there. The inflammation is still there. You've just mitigated you feeling it. So, yeah, I mean, you know, synthetic hormone, you know, synthetic contraceptive pills have their own problems because, you know, they're not bioidentical. Our body doesn't recognize them. You know, it's a synthetic progesterone, a progestin, and you know they can. The problem is when you take any exogenous hormone, it actually dysregulates your own endogenous supply.
Yeah.
So quite often then a female will be only on the pill for a year or 2 years, but if they're very sensitive to that, they come off the pill expecting, oh, I'm going to start a family now, and they realize, oh my goodness, it's completely wrecked my fertility. And in some women that can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to get back to producing your own hormones in a natural way. And obviously, people, you know, some women are more sensitive to taking a contraception than others.
So, but anyway.
But that's contraception. But yes, yeah. I mean,
Anyway, that's my fault. Sorry.
But the same goes for taking HRT at the other end. You know, a lot of the HRT, the old HRT, was synthetic. It was a synthetic estrogen. It was a synthetic progestin, not progesterone. The estrogen was quite often made from an equine urine, a horse's urine. So although it was natural, it wasn't bioidentical. So and the same thing goes. It doesn't. The body doesn't recognize it. It doesn't recognize it as it just recognizes it as a chemical. And that's why, you know, synthetic HRT has had a bad rap, rightfully so, because it has caused a lot of problems for women with hormonal cancers and other problems. So,
I mean, I feel like there's just going to be so much to talk about. So if we can't fit it all into this half an hour,
no. I think we should maybe use maybe have HRT and all of the sort of estrogens and the progesterone as maybe a separate video where we have it, you know, maybe some people can ask some questions about that, some of your viewers, and we can do a little session on HRT.
Yes, that would be great. But anyway,
itself.
Perimenopause.
And whether we're going to talk today more about hormone imbalance and whether that supplemental hormone is actually necessary, and hopefully it isn't, but you know, people can make the decision for themselves.
So instead of kind of going straight to the doctor and going, stick me on HRT, what can we do then? What can we do to prepare our bodies, to prepare ourselves for this time? Because Right, we can go on for a long time, can't it?
Yeah, so let's quickly just define perimenopause and menopause. So menopause is when the period you've had a cessation of your menstrual cycle for a year, and your LH level, which is your luteinizing hormone, and your FSH level, which is your follicular stimulating hormone, which happens at ovulation, are high. So if you're 40 years old and you've had a cessation of periods, but your levels of LH and FSH are normal, you are not in menopause. You've got something else that's stopping the period. So it's actually both of those things. And yes, so you then have a decline in estrogen, you have a decline in testosterone, and you have a decline in estrogen. And of course, they can have, very dramatic effects on the body. And although menopause is described as natural, which it is, it can also be, for some people, incredibly physically and psychologically challenging. Partly because, women can suffer from hot flashes, night sweats, which disturb sleep. So, of course, sleep disturbance then makes you feel terrible all day. You can have low libido. You can have anxiety, more depression. You can have, more weight gain, drier skin, and a sort of crashing fatigue as well, which a lot of women experience, this sudden, horrendous fatigue. And all of this is a sort of imbalance of hormone. So what happens with menopause is that the estrogen that was made by the ovaries and the progesterone gets taken up by the adrenal gland. So the adrenals sit on the top of the kidneys. Estrogen is also stored in the fat cell. So we get a little bit from the fat cell, but mainly from the adrenal gland. Now, the adrenal gland, as we know, is responsible for our cortisol and our stress hormone. So, because cortisol is essential to life, I mean, if we have no cortisol, we die within 5 days. It's a serious medical emergency. So, the body, if you are stressed and you've had chronic stress for a long, long period of time, will prioritize the production of cortisol because it needs to keep you alive. So it will downregulate then, if your poor little adrenal glands are trying to do all of this, mainly your progesterone, but also your estrogen and your testosterone too. It's like, look, I need to keep you alive. I don't really care whether you're having, whether your sex hormones are in balance. So the body's very efficient, it's like, so going into menopause, the better our adrenal health, the better the outcome of probably our menopause is going to be. Now, I remember my big mentor, Pamela Smith, who's written lots of books on hormones. She's been practicing for like 35 years. And she said that 35 years ago, when she had clients coming in testing their cortisol, only about 5 to 10% was disturbed, imbalanced. And now it's like 90%.
Wow.
So that shows what has happened with our, our...
Do you think that's lifestyle?
Our lifestyle. And, cortisol naturally follows a kind of pattern. So it's vital, we get a cortisol awakening in the morning because that keeps us motivated, wants to get out of bed. And if you see cortisol on a curve, it rises in the morning. And then the idea is it sort of drops off in the evening, so that then we get melatonin rising in the evening, which is our sleepy hormone. So we get this lovely rise of cortisol, keeps us awake, and then we get this lovely rise of melatonin where we're supposed to go to sleep. Of course, today, we live under artificial light. We're awake till with our iPads till exactly, and I'm guilty of that, till 1, 2 in the morning. So, and then we don't wake properly, we're tired in the morning, our cortisol doesn't function properly. So what you have, and then we can be chronically stressed. So instead of seeing this lovely cortisol rise that dips off towards the evening, you'll see somebody whose cortisol is raised all the time. And when that happens, that's very, very abnormal for the body. And because cortisol in the short term is really good, it's an anti-inflammatory hormone, it's brilliant for you because it's our fight-flight response. But if we're in constant fight-flight, the body will down-regulate it. It'll go, right, okay, I've had enough. You're damaging your body. I'm going to down-regulate it. So then you get people who have what we call a flattened cortisol. They have no spike in the morning. It's just flatlined on a curve. And these are the people that can't get out of bed in the morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's called adrenal fatigue. You know, you've heard that gets bandied about a lot. Oh, I've got adrenal fatigue. But that's what it is. So then if you look at, so you think, okay, well, what's cortisol then got to do with progesterone and our other hormones? So if we have chronically raised and dysregulated cortisol, then that will affect the thyroid. So that's the next link in the chain, if you like.
Like this whole interactive kind of
web. Spider's web. Where you pull on, you pull that little spider's one little tentacle and the whole web collapses,
Yeah, so if one thing is out, it just affects everything.
Everything. So yeah, your melatonin being out, you can't then sleep. So that then, you have your thyroid. And your thyroid, of course, is responsible for your metabolism and for your growth and development. And, you see people who have dysregulated thyroid, they either very, very hyperactive if it's hyper, or they, again, can't get out of bed. If they have low thyroid, they're tired, they're fatigued, they have weight gain, they're sluggish, they feel cold all the time, they have dry skin. And thyroid has become an epidemic.
Is it?
I mean, of my 4 best friends, 3 of them take thyroxine.
Wow.
It's actually, I think I read, one of the biggest prescribed drugs. It is almost epidemic and also underdiagnosed. Very underdiagnosed.
Interesting.
And so thyroid is obviously produced and then converted in the liver to the active form. And we need T3, we need really good T3 to produce estrogen. So if the cortisol's not working, the thyroid's not working, the estrogen is also going to be dysfunctional. So it kind of that cascade. And we know that we get cortisol, high cortisol, and we get what we call a progesterone steal, although that's technically not right. It's called the progesterone steal because it's more like if your cortisol is abnormal, your receptor sites will look at the cortisol rather than the progesterone. So your progesterone doesn't work efficiently. So then you've got a real imbalance. So, and you hear the word bandied about a lot, estrogen dominance. I don't know whether you've heard that word, Christine, where what that really means is, and it happens a lot it can happen at any age, but it happens a lot in perimenopause, so in puberty, you tend to have quite a nice sort of fairly stable amount of estrogen and progesterone. When you go into perimenopause, you tend to have estrogen that's doing this on a graph. So if you take 28 days of somebody's estradiol, it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's why we can be so symptomatic. We can feel great one day, crap the next day, fine the next, and be like, why? It's like being schizophrenic. It's like, why am I feeling great one day and I'm feeling like I need to cry the next, This can be a very frustrating time, the perimenopause. And this can last 5 to 10 years before technical menopause. This can be very, very challenging. And, the estrogen going up and down is one thing, but the progesterone dropping can be another, because, of course, progesterone is really good for making us feel good, and not having anxiety and depression, and all of these things can really play in when we lose our progesterone. So you get a lot of women then who think, oh, I'll just dab a bit of progesterone. I'll go get some bioidentical progesterone cream, which you can get. And it's organic and it sounds really great. And I can slap a bit of progesterone on. And again, you have to be really cautious doing things like that, you know, because it's fine while you're still producing estrogen, maybe to have a little bit of progesterone. But it always needs to, the estrogen progesterone always needs to be in balance. That's the key. It doesn't matter whether you're in perimenopause or menopause. There is still a balance between those hormones. And if you're in menopause and you're literally having no estrogen and you're slapping on progesterone cream thinking it's good for my anxiety, then that's causing high progesterone, low estrogen. And that can lead to things like insulin resistance and diabetes. So you have to be very careful because everything affects everything else.
Very delicate balance, isn't it?
It's a very delicate balance. And this is why you can have one woman who has the same symptoms as another. And the temptation in there is the one woman goes, oh, it's because I've got low progesterone. And the other woman goes, oh, well, I'm getting, you know, those symptoms. So mine must be due to low progesterone too. And making that assumption, which can be very wrong, you know. So if you take, for example, hot flashes, because that seems to be a common menopause symptom, you know, hot flashes can be due to low estrogen or fluctuating estrogen. But it can also be due to high cholesterol, cortisol. So you can be completely not in perimenopause and have a hot flash, and it's to do with cortisol and not to do with estrogen. So I always say to people, if you have any symptoms whatsoever, always go to your GP, get thoroughly tested for your sex hormones, for your insulin, for your, you know, whether you're going into insulin resistance or pre-diabetes, and cortisol. Get them all tested because you can't guess what. And it's really, really important not to self-diagnose and start, oh, you know, I'll try a bit of this, or I'll try an adaptogenic herb, or I'll take more vitamin D, or, you know, all of those things can be good, but you've got to know what you're treating. It's very, very important.
So when you get those results, you know, and you know exactly what's going on, what can you then do, you know, to balance these hormones? I mean, that's where someone like you comes in. But what do you do?
Well, can I share it? See if I can share a screen with you now.
Yes, let me see if I can remember how to do it now.
If not, it doesn't matter. I can go through all of the bits that we need to maybe take into consideration.
Yeah, I will work this out. Oh God, I'm not having a good day today.
We're not having a good tech day today.
No. Oh yes, no, here we go, Zoe.
But we need to keep our cortisol low, remember, Christine. We don't want it affecting our other hormones, keeping our cortisol low.
So we're making you the host so you can share your screen. Yes.
Fabulous, thank you. Oh dear.
So cortisol, that's also, isn't that the hormone that makes us all sort of a bit podgy around the middle as well, as far as I remember?
Yes, it contributes to this sort of belly. This is what women hate. It's like, oh my God, it's not necessarily always that you're gaining weight, but your distribution of fat changes. So it kind of goes off your bum and your thighs and ends up around your middle. So you lose your hourglass shape, which can be very frustrating. And that is, it's kind of partly cortisol, partly losing your estrogen, progesterone, because they all kind of modulate weight gain or loss, as it were. So yeah, we could talk about weight gain as a separate.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Can you see my screen, Christine?
I can see your screen, yes.
Okay. So when we're looking at what we can actually do to balance our hormones, then all of these things on this little wheel here all influence it. So we've talked about controlling our stress, so I'll go there and go and work. We've talked about improving our sleep-wake cycle. So we need to be in bed by 10, 11 o'clock at night. We need to have had dark light. We need to be not looking at our blue light. You know, we need to not be looking at our PC and everything else, because that disrupts our melatonin.
Just out of interest, Zoe, I don't know if you know this, but you know you can get those sort of glasses that filter.
Yes, yeah. I haven't got any, but I think that I do try to be in the dark at night. I mean, I know I do sometimes have my look at Facebook or Instagram or something like that, but you know, I'm trying to get better at that. I really am, because I realise how vital that is. If there's one thing that you fix first, it's stress and sleep. They are the most important things, because quite often the dysregulation just comes from that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it could be something really simple as that.
Really as simple as that, because that kicks in our circadian rhythm. And if that is all out of balance, then nothing works properly. Even our insulin doesn't work properly.
So do you think also, I mean, actually, now I'm actually really going right back to teenagers, you know, would that affect teenagers as well then, you know, when they're sort of not sleeping and go to bed late and there's...
Well, you know, the thing is with teenagers, they can get away with it a little bit more, you know, because they have a natural, you know, their growth hormone's high and their cortisol is not as disrupted because they haven't had years and years of stress. So, you know, that's why they can get away with it a little bit better than we can. But the self-care when you're getting into the perimenopause, you know, has to go up a notch. Let's face it, you know. So improving our sleep-wake cycle. So, you know, we need that morning light into the full spectrum light, and it can be really challenging in the winter, I know, but you can buy full spectrum light boxes. So if you're challenged with this, then that can really help, because that, you know, full spectrum light straight into the retina in the morning, that makes the hormones work well. So this is really important, you know. So if you can go out for a morning walk early in the morning before you start work, that massively regulates our body. And then try and go to sleep as we did ancestrally, you know, not under artificial light. Go to bed when it gets dark, as much as we can.
What, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah, I know. We're not going to do that, but you know what I mean. If you can sort of start winding down by 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then in bed for 10:30, and then sleep, and then wake at 6, and get yourself out into daylight. You know, instead of I mean, I'm a real night owl, and I'm one of these people. I can be there till 2 in the morning, and that's my sparkle time. It's so annoying.
It must be annoying.
It's so annoying. My sparkle time. My husband's sparkle time is at 5 a.m. and I'm the opposite ends of the day. So improving our sleep-wake cycle, super important. Improving our insulin sensitivity, massively important. So we didn't talk about insulin, and this is another hormone. Now, so insulin affects the amount of glucose we have running around in our bloodstream, and we're only supposed to have about a teaspoon of glucose in our blood at any one time. So the insulin is responsible for getting that glucose that when we've had a sandwich and a packet of crisps and a soda, you know, getting the insulin rises to get that glucose into the cell, because it's very dangerous when it's swimming around in the bloodstream. But obviously the more kind of dysregulated our diet is, more either, you know, refined carbohydrates we're eating all the time, which spikes our insulin, or just eating all the time, grazing all the time. You know, we have people whose insulin never comes down. You know, insulin is supposed to go up and come down, up to put the glucose into the cell, back down again. You know,
I'm so guilty of that, but
yeah. And of course, everybody used to say, oh, you need 6 little meals a day. And I'm like, no, you don't, because your insulin is never going to go down.
I have a problem fruit, you see. I have like, I like to buy lots of fruit, and I eat sometimes like 10 pieces of fruit a day, which is terrible, isn't it? I mean, you know, you think it's healthy, but it's probably not.
Well, it's healthy, yeah, but you know, you can have kind of too much of a good thing, you know. And like you say, maybe if you ate it in one go instead of kind of like all the time, because then you have this, you know, it is kind of weird, insulin, because you think, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm on a vegan diet and I'm super healthy. But when you actually look at people's insulin curves who are eating sugar, even in the form of fructose in fruit all day, then their insulin never comes down. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have periods of not eating and then periods of eating, you know. So improving our insulin sensitivity, and a lot of people think, well, I'm not diabetic, so I'm fine. No, not necessarily. So you know, the two are actually different. So you can have high insulin and still, you know, be relatively, you know, you're not necessarily pre-diabetic. So the big thing is to not eat too often and not eat too much loaded carbohydrate all the time, you know, refined carbohydrates really. And then improving our liver health. And why do we need to improve our liver health? Because it is the main organ that's responsible for converting our thyroid. So if our liver health is bad, we don't convert our thyroid well, and we've discussed how bad that is and the knock-on effect on sex hormones. And also our liver is responsible for our estrogen detoxification. So this is where a lot of women run into trouble with hormone problems, breast cancer, is that they don't clear their estrogen. So estrogen is produced and then it goes through stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 detoxification, stage 1 and stage 2 taking place in the liver. So again, if your liver's compromised because you're eating, again, you know, you're I don't know, you've got a lot of medications that you're taking, and you drink
a glass of wine every night, maybe, or two.
Well, you know, this is the thing with alcohol. I mean, I was seeing a podcast the other day by a cardiologist, and he said, you know, there's absolutely no doubt about the evidence that a small amount of alcohol improves cardiovascular risk, but it increases breast cancer risk. So you have to weigh up as a person where your risk is. You know, if you've got a family history of breast cancers, then you don't want to be heavily drinking through the perimenopause, because that's going to add to your risk. So, you know, we all know, you know, we all have an odd glass of wine and that's fine. But, you know, it's something to know about. And because if your body your liver is processing a lot of alcohol, it can't process a lot of estrogen.
No. So it's a bad one, isn't it? Drinking.
Yeah. So improving our liver health is really important, and then reducing our environmental toxins. So we know that estrogen. So we have 3 estrogens, and we'll discuss that maybe in another, because that's complicated. We have 3 different estrogens now, and people think, oh, I didn't realize that. I thought we only had 1 estrogen. So we have 3 estrogens, but we also have what we call xenoestrogens. And these are the estrogens that are very damaging to the body, because they are like fake estrogens produced from pesticides, you know, house cleaners, you know, all of the topical stuff that we slap on our body. These bind to our estrogen receptors and make the estrogen that we have, our own good estrogen, dysfunctional, because it's like, hang on a minute, I've got this toxin that's attached to the receptor, and what do I do? And you know, it's hard to get these toxins off the receptor sites. So this causes a lot of estrogen dysfunction too.
Can you explain that a little? Because I know, I mean, but maybe for some people they don't know what a receptor site is. So can we simplify that a bit?
Yeah. So all of our cells have receptor sites for a myriad of things, so that when a hormone or a vitamin or anything goes out into the body, that it latches on to the cell receptor site. So it's
like a little docking stick.
Like a docking stick, exactly. Exactly, that's a very, very good analogy.
if you get these xenoestrogens or whatever they're called,
Yeah,
they,
xenoestrogens.
they go into the docking stations and then
Go into the docking stations, but unlike our own estrogen that goes onto the docking station and then we metabolize it out, these xenoestrogens lock onto our estrogen receptors, but like the estrogen receptors, like, yeah, but it's docked on, but what is it? This is a chemical. This isn't what I'm used to. And this, it's very scary. It's
very scary, isn't it?
It's very scary what environmental toxins can do to disrupt the hormone balance. And, you know, you've just got to do your best with this, you know, try and eat as cleanly as possible, try and grow some of your own food so you know it's organic. You know, it's not possible, I know, from a cost perspective for everybody to eat or even find organic food, but, you know, you can only do what you can do. Try and mitigate, you know, using harsh household cleaners, be really conscious of that. Yeah, I mean, we can't all walk around with a Michael Jackson bubble and think, oh, no. I'm immune from environmental toxin, because it is what it is. But, you know, it's important to be aware of it and just not be neurotic, but try and mitigate it as much as you can. Yeah. And then boosting on nutrition density, because that is so important. People nutritionally spend a lot of time looking at macronutrients. They concentrate on how much protein you've got and how much carbohydrate you're eating and how much fat you're consuming, and am I ketogenic, or am I, you know, all of this dietary stuff that's going on at the moment, and don't pay attention to the micronutrients, which are, you know, all of the minerals that we need, all of the B vitamins that we need for the body to function well. And even if you look at the thyroid gland, that takes optimization of about 14 nutrients for the thyroid to work efficiently. So if you're lacking in any one of them,
and even energy production as well, I suppose, you know, energy production, just producing the energy to live.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But, you know, that's what the energy production is more in the sense of protein, carbohydrate, fat, that's the sort of macronutrients, what you're using to fuel the body in terms of
what I mean is, like, when we get down to the actual production of adenosine triphosphate, if I remember, the energy.
Adenosine triphosphate is very good. ATP, that drives the cell. It drives our energy. So yes, absolutely. But we need micronutrients to drive ATP, drive the mitochondria, which is the energy production of the cell as well. And the glands definitely require, you know, all of the micronutrients. You know, the thyroid in particular requires iodine. So does the breast tissue. And, you know, iodine is something that, you know, if you're not eating a lot of seafood, shellfish or fish, and you're having sea salt, because, you know, there's not a lot of iodine in sea salt, unfortunately. And iodine was taken out of bread. At one time it was added to bread, and now it's taken out and it was replaced by bromide. So we have lots and lots of people who are iodine deficient, and that is the main reason their thyroid's not working. And I'm not suggesting everybody goes and glugs back a load of iodine. I'm just saying that it's something to be aware of. And, you know, but the doctor never goes, oh, you've got an iodine problem, you've got a thyroid problem, let's test your iodine level. They never do.
Also, I guess it's like that whole thing about soil erosion, and they're not
soil quality, micronutrients
in our actual food that we eat. And it just, I mean, my goodness, this topic is just so huge, isn't it? Do you think it's important when we're going through perimenopause and menopause? Do you think it's important that we take some supplements? Do you think that's what we need to do as a preparation?
I think it's like you say, in an ideal world, if our soil had the correct, you know, we talk about the gut microbiome today and lots of attention paid to that. But the soil has a microbiome, and that's what's been lost with modern agriculture. And because of that, we have very low nutrient density in the soil. We therefore have much lower nutrient density in the food that we eat. And therefore, we are not feeding our body how it used to be fed. I mean, I think I saw a statistic whereby you have to eat a whole box of strawberries today to get the same nutrient content that used to be in one. Gosh. So you think about it, you can't eat that much food. So, you know, in an ideal world, it'd be like, oh no, just get it all from food, you know, but the reality is different. And
most people don't realize that, so do they?
No, absolutely. It's, you know, and also it isn't, like say, you know, it isn't just what you eat, it's what you absorb. Exactly. And you know, if you've had a diet that's very high, you know, some people are much more gluten sensitive than others, and you know, some people have like cereal for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner. It's a huge amount of gluten, and although you may not be gluten, you may not be celiac, that's a lot of a substance that strips out the minerals from your body. Yeah. So depending on what you eat, you know, you need to be able to absorb your minerals and vitamins that you eat efficiently. Yeah. And to do that, you have to have a good microbiome. So, you know, lots of attention paid today to having some fermented food, some raw food, some cooked food that kind of, and some probiotics maybe, that fuel the microbiome so that everything we eat, we're utilizing well. Yeah. And so that's why, you know, boosting nutrient density, but boosting absorption. I think on there I've got improving the digestion and the microbiome.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, there's just so many things to talk about.
And all of this, and our sleep and our exercise. So if you look at exercise, you know, we don't want to be exercising too much because that raises cortisol, particularly in the perimenopause.
Oh,
you know,
great. I'm doing something right.
I have lots of women that come to me and they're like, I've gained all this weight and I'm running a marathon and I don't understand it. I'm utilizing all of these calories and I'm putting weight on now. What is going on? And I'm like, because your body now needs a little more nourishment. You need more efficient exercise rather than more prolonged exercise. So a bit more a bit more high intensity, a bit more resistance training, but not necessarily running for an hour at a time, which is raising your cortisol and contributing to the belly fat, you know, the weight gain around the middle. So exercise we need to be doing. We need movement as well as exercise because you know, movement is very, very important. I see lots of people that go to the gym and they think they're brilliant, and then they sit on the couch or behind a screen for the rest of the day and don't actually move. Yeah. It's like, so you think the half hour at the gym is compensating for the fact you're actually doing nothing for the rest of the 23 hours a day or whatever. So movement is really important. So I say, like, when you're even at the kettle, you know, when you're waiting for the kettle to boil, do some lunges, or if you've literally got an hour in front of the telly, then do some side kicks, or you know, move your body, because that burns calories much more efficiently, keeps the metabolic rate high, much more than just going to the gym for half an hour.
Yeah. I walk my dog. That's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Walking. You know, our ancestors, the women, if you look at women, and you know, so the men went off hunter-gathering, but the women would walk miles sometimes to just get water, or you know, or be in the fields. So they weren't necessarily running a marathon, but they were moving constantly. And you know, it's just the way of the world now that we sit, because our jobs are so computer focused, and this is so unnatural for us. Yeah. Really. You know, and it doesn't help our hormones. No. Or our metabolism. Yeah. So, and obviously as we get older, we need to make sure that we're not losing our muscle mass, because we start to get what's called sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle from about the age of 40. And when our muscle starts to deteriorate, our metabolism goes down. So therefore, we're much more prone to weight gain, just from the loss of muscle. So again, we need to be really targeted with our exercise to make sure that we're not losing, we're eating enough protein to build the muscle.
The things like weight training, do you think, is that what we are sort of...
Exactly, a little bit of resistance training, and yeah, really important, because we need to be building the bone. So when we lose estrogen, really important, as everybody knows, that we're more prone to osteoporosis because we lose bone mass, bone density. So it's really important, if we're not going to replace that estrogen, that we really work hard at, you know, maintaining that through resistance training. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, there's so many things that we need to consider, really, isn't there?
So you asked me about supplementation, and I would say, if you're looking at a pyramid in order of what's correct, so stress and sleep, correct that first. Nutrition, correct that next. Fitness and exercise. Hormone optimization, in whichever way, you know, you will talk about HRT, or, you know, whether that's necessary or not, but nevertheless, you know, trying to increase your natural progesterone, natural estrogen. And then I think supplementation's the last resort, because you have to be really careful how you supplement.
Yeah. But you know, I think this is really great, Zoe. I really appreciate you you telling us all of this, because what I think is so wonderful about it is that when you learn about things, and especially, you know, I think I've learned so much this evening, is that it gives you kind of a choice, doesn't it, that you can actually be a bit more proactive in your health. And I think it's so...
Yes, absolutely, and you know, everybody's menopause, perimenopause is different. We have a unique, our hormones are as unique as our fingerprints. So, you know, we know that, like, by 70 years old, 20% of women are still producing estrogen.
Wow.
So, you know, some people's natural estrogen production goes on longer. And so those women may be less symptomatic. We also know that when we lose our estrogen from the ovaries production, then it's stored in the fat cells. So women who have, I don't mean to be overweight, because that's not good, we know that, but being underweight may give us a worse menopause too, because you know, the body will pull the estrogen when it's required from the fat cell. So yeah, so sometimes being underweight can be bad going into menopause as well.
I mean, I have one friend, and I
have a friend.
I have a friend who told me that when she went through the menopause, she didn't have any symptoms at all.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, you know, that's what I want to be like.
No, I was going to make a joke at the beginning, and I was going to go, you know, when we're young, we envied things like, you know, girls who are skinny, or girls, or, you know, girls who had great fashion sense, or girls who were just too cool for school. And now we envy women who go, oh, I went through the menopause, I didn't even know I'd been through it. No, I didn't get any symptoms at all. And we're like, really?
Well, that's the only person who said that. So you know, I'm
menopause envy
others. And maybe I'll be one of them, I don't know. Well, hopefully if we do all these things, then maybe...
Yeah, the thing is, like you say, just balance your hormones as much as you can. Balance your cortisol, you know, take some adaptogenic herbs, do more meditation, do, you know, have some acupuncture, you know, all of these things help the cortisol, and that helps the you know, we sleep better, and that helps the thyroid, and then, you know, eat well, so our thyroid works well, and then, you know, our sex hormones will even in menopause work better.
Yeah. And also, very quickly before we go, because I think we've been here for quite a while now, one thing we talked about actually before we jumped on was also the attitude, isn't it? The perception of it.
Yes.
So, because I think that's so important as well, and obviously something that I'm quite passionate about, perception. You know, I think life is all about how we perceive it, really. And you know, that can play a big factor in menopause as well. I think you mentioned.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just, again, a similar thing where you could have, you know, two women with, you know, you do all their blood work and you look at everything, their genetics and, you know, their nutritional status, and they're the same. And one woman could be suffering hugely, you know, mentally or with mental, anxiety, depression, or physical symptoms, and the other woman's just sailing through like no problem at all. So that is something that we cannot test for, and that is perception of menopause. And it's not right or wrong. Some women will suffer more feeling that it's the loss of their youth and their fertility. That will play into their mind a little bit more than, let's say, another woman who feels incredibly liberated by the fact that, oh God, I've no longer got this dreaded bleed every month and, and up and down symptoms, and I haven't got to think about contraception and anything like that. And it's, for a woman, that's like, oh, I've had my kids and I'm done with all that and I'm free now, and so the perception is something that you cannot test for.
No.
And it will result, and other women, it's like, oh my God, I'm so worried, I'm getting all these wrinkles, my estrogen's gone, and look at these wrinkles I'm getting now, and and they mourn the loss of their fertility.
So if we can focus on all the positives, then maybe it will also be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And I guess on that note, Zoe, I have, because you've had the slide there, I kind of have lost complete track of time. But I think we've been talking for half an hour. I know that. But I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on this evening. And I'm just so sorry that we couldn't do it live. It's been great fun. And I know that everyone who's going to watch it, they're going to learn so much, just as I have. And I felt like
well, that's good. That's good.
Sit here and
it hasn't been all doom and gloom, because I think I think it just shows that we can take everything. We know what factors contribute.
Yeah.
We take that into our own hands. And yes, we may have to do more self-care. There's no question about that. As we get older in general, we have to do more self-care. And what we could get away with at 20, we can't necessarily get away with at 40. So, but knowing all the factors, we can be proactive. So,
and then feel more in control. When you know stuff, you have the choices and you know what to do.
Yeah.
All out of your control. So thank you so much for coming on. And if you have any questions at all for Zoe, please put them in the comments below or contact her. Zoe's going to put I don't know if you've got a page or a website or anything you want to put below.
I have
video. That would be great. So if you do want to chat to Zoe about anything, if you have got issues with your hormones, get in touch with Zoe, because she clearly knows what she's talking about. So it's been so interesting. And if you would like to explore any more subjects a little bit deeper that we talked about, I'd love to have Zoe back if there's some interest, actually, because I think it's just fascinating. And I think there's so many more things we could delve into.
We didn't really cover HRT today, and that's a subject I think a lot of women have a lot of concern about. How to, if you need to do it, how to do it safely. That's a big topic.
Do you know what? Maybe we could have that as a sort of I know is it this month or next month that it's menopause month?
I think it's this month. I think it's this month. Yeah. Well, World Menopause. I didn't know it was actually. I saw a gynecologist post on LinkedIn today going, it's World Menopause Month. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, maybe we could do it in November, because I haven't got any more spaces for October. But maybe in November we could do it. If you're up for it.
I'd love to talk about HRT, whether it's necessary and how to do it safely.
Yeah, so if you're interested in Zoe coming back and talking about HRT and how to safely take it, put your comments below, and then we'll arrange that for November. So anyway, we better get going now, and I'll let you get on with the rest of your evening so you can get to bed early without being on the screen.
So that my sleep wake is not disrupted.
Okay. So lovely talking to you, Zoe. And do you know what? I don't think I'll be able to finish this because you are still the host, I think. So
I've stopped sharing my screen.
Stop sharing your screen. And then we can say goodbye. So goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll see you all very soon. So I hope you enjoy this replay. And I now have to make myself the host. I still don't know how to. I know. I'll just
technology is
reclaim host. There we go. I am now the host, and we can end the meeting. All right. Good night, Zoe. Take care. And bye, everyone. Bye-bye.